Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Unbreakable Her podcast, where we make space for the stories of resilient women. I am your host, Monique James. Thank you for being here. As I started to plan what this episode would be, I knew I wanted to do something themed around the Thanksgiving holiday, although calling it Thanksgiving and the whole origin of it is problematic. I will acknowledge that. I did want to do something themed. And of course, it needed to be something around women, either in general or women I know. So I settled on doing an episode about friendship. And my three closest friends, my three closest women friends, do not know that this episode is going to basically profile them through the lens of our friendship. They are finding this out as the episode drops. So I actually really like that part. But the reason why I wanted to do that is because friendships for women are really important. Some research says, now I didn't say this, but there is some research that says for women, close friendships are more important to a good life than marriage, children, and money. I didn't say that. I'm just saying some people say that. And really, the point of me mentioning that is that for women, friendships are vital. Um, the closest friendships are usually referred to as sisterhood. And I can certainly say that I have that in my three closest friends. Before I walk you through who they are, I, I think it's really important for me to just acknowledge that I have many friends who are important to me, who I value very much, and who are, you know, uh, critical to different parts of my life. That is full stop. I have many friends that are important to me. What I am doing by introducing or sort of chronicling my relationship with my three closest friends is really just focusing on three women who I have the closest relationships with now. And those relationships have been sustained. So I've had many friendships that I don't have anymore, or that, maybe aren't as close, or all of that. There are no issues. As far as I know, I don't have issues with anyone. So, that's an acknowledgement that friendships shift and change over time, and people who you were closer with when you were younger, maybe you're not as close with, people move away, but there's all kinds of reasons why, and none of them have to be um, shade or negativity. Okay, so I just want to make that very clear that I'm very thankful for all of my friendships, both past and present, but I'm focusing on my three closest friends today. And then the other thing that I want to say is, there are so many really important women in my life, and they're going to get their own episode. My friends, okay, they will not be guests on my podcast. I asked them. Well, one of them I didn't, but I'm sure she would say no too. So, um, so this is the only way that I can involve them, and kind of get them in an episode. And to that end, I will not be sharing anything personal about them, but I will be talking about how the gift of their friendship and sisterhood has impacted me at important times in my life. So, with that, we're going to go ahead and jump on in. So, in keeping with the tagline for the podcast, which is her story, her strength, her triumph, I'll start with the story of how I met all of them, and I'll go in order of when we met. So, the first of my friends, my three closest friends that I met, is Tay. Tay and I met in our freshman year of college, and it was pretty funny to both of us. Now, when I say things are funny, or if I find things funny, I am positive that most of the time you will not be laughing. But these things are funny just in the context of how we met, what was happening then, all of those things. So Tay and I met freshman year, and what happened was we were on campus. We did not know each other when we got to campus. Like, some people are from the same college or same high school or from the same neighborhood or whatever, but we did not know each other at all. I want to say this is maybe 3 to 4 weeks or something like that. It's pretty early in our first semester. We went to a Black Student Union meeting, which was being held in an off-campus house. So we did not go there together. We walked there. It was me, her, and another freshman girl who was Black. So we go there. We sit through the meeting, and we leave. Now, it's late now, it's dark, so we decided we just kind of walked together. I don't even know if we formally decided, but we were walking together. Okay. So as we're walking, none of us were talking, but there the meeting had been a little bit interesting. I'll just put it like that. It was a little odd. So I know I was thinking it, but I didn't necessarily want to. It was weird. I want to say Tay said, "Did you guys think that meeting was weird?" And so both of us were like, "Yes." Like, what were they talking about? Like, it was a bit of a hot mess of a meeting. Not even worth going into. But so from that moment, so we started talking about like how it was unhinged and all that stuff. And so we get onto campus. The other girl goes to her dorm. Tay and I lived in different dorms that were like in opposite directions. So I will never forget this. We stood at a tree because we were like, I was like, what dorm are you in? What dorm are you in? So we knew we had to walk in different directions, but we stood at a tree and we talked for probably an hour. And that tree kind of became our spot. So we would sometimes meet up for dinner, or whatever, lunch, anything. It was right near the student union where the dining and all that stuff was. So we would stop there. And then before we, left for our dorms, that's how we would talk there all the time. So that's how we first met. And that's when I learned that she was also from Philly. We did not grow up in the same neighborhood. We have very different upbringings. I don't know, very different, but different. But that's when I learned, that she was also from Philly. So yeah, so that's how I met Tay. And then I want to say maybe sophomore or junior year of college. I'm I'm not 100% sure, but it might have been junior year is when I met Vel. I met Vel through church. So she was close friends with people I had become friends with. They had a very long friendship, really long history, and I had just kind of, come into the picture and met a lot of them and became friends. And then I met Vel, and we just became cool. And it wasn't until I want to say, I think it was junior year that we started talking on the phone. Mind you, this was before social media. And it was also before texting was as popular as it is. So we would talk on the phone all the time. Like, we would stay up. I mean, I would be up until, 1, 2 in the morning. We would just be chatting it up. And I have no idea how it started. I'm gonna be honest, like, I really don't know. But that's what happened. And we would talk all the time. And, we found out all the things that we had in common and all of that jazz. She grew up in the southernmost part of Delaware and into Maryland. So like we just grew up in two totally different places. And then we just have very different upbringings. I was in we met through church, and so we were in church at the time, but I didn't really grow up in church the way she grew up in church. Yeah. So that's how I met Vel, and we, became cool. And then you have Alicia, who I wanna say at this point, I'm actually terrible, you can probably tell from this, I'm terrible with dates. I wanna say at this point, maybe it's maybe like 2014? Nah, it's gotta be longer than that. I don't know. Doesn't matter. So it was something like that, 13, 14, 15, something like that. We've been friends for at minimum 10 years, but I think we're at like 11, 12. In any event, we also met through church, but I m I met her through my friend. So they were friends first, and I was at a time in my life where, like, I did not want any friends. I just wasn't interested. I already had Vel and Tay and I had other people in my life I was close to. I had, really really good thriving friendships and I didn't need another one. Whatever that song is, No New Friends, I was like cool with that. I'm also introverted and socially anxious and all of that. So I was like, I'm not interested in I don't need any new friends. So when she became friends with my friend, I was like, cool, y'all cool over there. Like hey, if she was around and I would like speak to her and stuff, but I did not want to be friends. So and it wasn't anything that she did, I just wasn't interested in trying to have a friendship. So she kept inviting me. So her and my friend, they would invite me to go to stuff, and I'd be like, "No, I'm good. Like, y'all cool, do your thing. I'm good." And then I just like, I guess I think the first place I went with them was, like, to the movies. It was either to the movies or to, like, a concert or something, like a small performance. I can't remember. In any event, that I guess the rest is history, honestly. It took a while, I think, because again, I wasn't interested in building a friendship, but eventually we became really great friends. So that's how I met all of them at different points, different times in my life and for I think different reasons. When I think about how God orchestrates things, I think there were different reasons in my life that it was important that I met them when I did. And so the strength part in the tagline, I actually want to share how each of these women impacted me and were a source of strength for me during a very difficult time in my life, and that was losing my grandmother. So my grandmother passed away in 2016, and oddly enough, as bad as I am with dates, I never forget that. My grandmother actually suffered a stroke. It was in like October. So when that happened, of course, I reached out to my friends to be like, pray for her and for us because, this has happened. And obviously not just them, but I'm just talking about them today. So I kind of there was a lot that happened between her having a stroke and then her passing away in December. It was like just a whirlwind. There was so much going on. And so, as is often the case for me, I always feel like I have to be like super level headed, not emotional, very rigid, making sure that I can like understand what's going on, where do I need to help, what do I need to do, those kinds of things. And so I was in that mood. That's just how it's how I am. And I would need my space to like vent or decompress after, a visit or after conversations as a family that we had to have. And it was so much. So each of them, they were really important to me. So I didn't talk to Tay a lot about this, but she did check on me and he, offered herself as always. And then I would talk to Alicia probably most days, like especially after like dealing with a particularly hard moment or whatever. Like she was the person that I would call and just be like, this is going on, this is how I'm feeling, kind of thing. And I kept Vel up to date on what was going on. And it was like just the three of them. I knew that if I needed space, they will hold space for me. And so, as much as it was very hard for me to watch this all happen and experience it all, I did have people who I knew I could lean on. Now, let me also say I had my family, but we were all going through it. So I didn't feel like they were the right people to lean on. Um, Not because they wouldn't have let me or anything like that. It's just that I felt like I needed to lean outside of us because it was just so hard for everyone. So October happens, fast forward to December, and she passes away. The gesture that stands out to me is once she passed away, we basically knew, you kind of know when the services are going to be. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think she passed away on like a Saturday or something like that. And so there was enough time. There was a week where we could plan services. So, if people pass away later in the week, but not the weekend, then you're going to be looking at 2 weekends away, just, in general. So it was pretty clear that the services were going to be the following weekend. And I didn't know I didn't know this was in the works. But what happened was right after my grandmother passed away, we were at the hospital for a while. And then some of this is a blur, but during that time, I remember when I left, I actually went to my pastor's house after my grandma passed away. So we were at the hospital for a long time. And then I went there and I was just gonna stay there that night. Um, just to like decompress. So it was it was late. It was really late. And then like there's a knock on the door and there's Vel at the door the very night. I think it was the night, either the night or the next day that my grandmother passed away. And she showed up because she knew she wasn't going to be able to make the services, just scheduling wise, it wasn't going to work. So she made sure to simply be present for me. And that's the thing about Vel is that she's very funny and really fun to talk to, but she doesn't have to say a lot. She's really good at just making sure that you know that she's present for you. So she's great in that way. Tay was at the services very much just like, "Hey, I'm here." And I love that my friends don't, especially in times like that, they're not, focused on making sure that I acknowledge them. I don't feel any obligation to entertain them, if that makes sense. They're like, "Hey, I'm here, I'm present, and whatever you need or don't need, it's cool." And then Alicia was there with her mom, whom I love. And so during that time, the services, that was one thing, but I didn't even cry the day of my grandmother's funeral. I didn't realize this until much later. I didn't cry. And I'm not saying that because it was like it's like some badge of honor. I'm saying it because I was so focused on I actually had to officiate the service. So there was just a lot happening. I was making sure we were where we were supposed to be, making sure I'm lined up where we got processed. It's a lot of stuff going on. And so and run the service really. And I was not going to shirk my duties that day. I had to make sure that, I did what I was supposed to do, but I didn't realize until later that I didn't cry. And so when it was all over, when the services were over and everybody is sort of settling back into the routine of life, and I'm now having to sit with and live with the fact that I don't have my grandmother who I talk to every day. They were there. These friends were there for me, present. They were not the only ones. I feel like I have to keep saying that. Um, but they were there for me. So whatever I needed, however much space I needed to be sad, to question, to be angry, whatever it was, they were there. And that's just one example. I use that because it was a very big moment in my life, but they are just people who are there and they don't require me to show up as anything other than myself. And I think that is probably the thing that I value the most is that I don't have to pretend with them. I don't have to show up as a character. in their lives. They don't need me in that way. So I just value them so much. And then the last thing that I want to highlight about each of them is as I was thinking about this, it occurred to me that they all have a level of courage that I admire. And I don't mean in the like the from a distance, like, oh wow, that's so cool kind of way. I mean like I want to develop more of the characteristics that I see in them in myself. I've always said I should say I've always agreed with the statement because I didn't coin it, but there's a statement that if you're always the smartest person in the room, you know, emphasis on always. If you're always the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. And I think that's true of friend groups. If you're always the smartest person, always the person that everybody looks to, then you need more people in your life. It's not that you can't be that at times and for some, but you got to have people who you look at and say, "Man, I would love to be more like that," or "I really am in awe of how this person functions in this way." So I was just sort of scanning the lifespan of our friendships, and they all have a courage, and the courage is to exist fully as themselves without apology. And that might sound like duh, but it's not as normal as maybe it should be. So I'll highlight what I mean. Let's start with Tay. She's a trained dancer. And so she was a dance major, dance and sociology. And so she spent a year studying at the University of Ghana. Just I'm out. Like I'm going across the world to the continent of Africa to study by myself. Um that was the first time I'd ever, and yeah, it was study abroad, but I had never seen anybody do that. By that time, I had not traveled internationally myself, so that was just like mind blowing that somebody would embark on something like that. But it didn't stop there. After we graduated, so let me just tell you about my friendship with Tay. We can go, 6 months, don't talk, 8 months, don't talk. But when we do talk, it's just like we're back at that tree. It's like no time is missed. And we just kind of fall right back in line. And require she doesn't require a particular amount or a specific amount of time from me. She doesn't require me to, like give a certain amount of myself, time and attention. It's just that's my friend. If I need her, I know I can call her. And if I ever needed to, people say things like, do you have people who will help you bury a body? First of all, I don't know. There's no bodies. Okay, we're not doing that. But what's really cool about Tay is if I did do something that was wild and I needed to like talk to her about it, she would not judge me. That's what's cool about her. And it's very genuine. So yeah, like I would, months would go by and I'd be like, I haven't talked to Tay, let me reach out. And then I would reach out and I wouldn't get her. And then it'd be like 30 days later, she would reach back out. I was like, oh, I was in wherever, some country other than the US by herself because she's out. Okay. So she has courage to just go and explore the world, and she doesn't need permission to do it. Like she gives herself permission to do it. And I just think that's so cool. The other thing that she does is she has a family now, but before she had her own children, you will always find Tay with kids. She was sponsoring children that were part of a family that we met when we traveled to South Africa for a wedding. She meets these people there. Next thing you know, she's sponsoring a kid, paying school fees. Like, if she feels like it's something that she wants to do, she's not going to be talked out of it. She's not going to be convinced otherwise. She does what she feels is the right thing to do. But she's definitely a child magnet. So she has a gift in that way. So that's Tay. And then Vel has this courage to exist as herself as well. But one thing I love about her is that you don't ever have to wonder where you stand with Vel. I talk about this story to her and she doesn't remember it. And that's another reason why it's very funny to me. So how can I share this without okay, so I said something about like a guy and it something along some lines of like, oh, like that. She did not appreciate the joke and she let me know. And this is early in our friendship. I want to say like might be like year 1 or 2 where it was like, hey, that's not funny and I don't like people saying that. And I was like, note to self, don't say that no more. Also, cool. I don't have to worry about her just keeping quiet to try and keep peace, but she's going to say what's on her mind. And so I think that requires a certain level of courage too, because friendships can be fickle. And if you're not locked in, sometimes you might feel like, oh, I can't say what needs to be said or I'm gonna lose the friendship. And the truth is, if being honest and upfront about how you feel will cause you to lose the friendship, are they your friend anyway? But that's commentary for another day. Yeah, Vel just has a courage. And man, you want to talk about traveling? This is a world traveler. Like Vel basically decided I'm going to live my life. And she's been all over the place. This woman went to Japan by herself. I've traveled internationally, but I was always with somebody that knew the lay of the land. But the courage that she has to just not wait, I just admire it so much. And then and also to exist fully as herself. You know, she's hilarious. She's a really funny person. She's very talented, smart, all of that. And she's not waiting for anybody to validate that. She's who she is. And if you call her around her birthday, she might be on another continent. So just saying. And then there's Alicia. So I actually call her Swiss. She is we gave her that nickname when we first met her. Remember I said that um another she was friends with my friend. And then we were all friends. And so we started calling her Swiss because it seemed like every week we would find out something new that she could do, some kind of talent or something that she had. For example, it was like months into our friendship that we found out she's a recording artist and has like albums. It was like you just that's just not something you share. Like what? Okay. And then she's modeled and she understands photography and she's great at marketing. Like it was just so much stuff that you would find out randomly at the weirdest times. It'd be like, you know how to what? And so you would think that after all these years, it all has kind of like come out, but no. I'm trying to remember what it was that I recently found out that she can do. I can't remember. But she's she's so talented that it's weird sometimes. But she also has this courage to exist as herself, which is so cool. For example, so I think like 7 years. She's like 7 years younger than me. So some stuff she would do, she might be somewhere like playing video games. And to me, I'm like, yo, I'm too old for that. I know there's a lot of people who play video games, but for me, that seems to be like a youthful thing to do. But she doesn't care what I think about her playing video games. Like, she won't play video games. That's what she's gonna do. So, mind your business. Um, and she could do that, and then also be in charge of marketing for a major credit card brand because she can do all of that stuff. Um, she's she plays guitar. She plays piano. Like, just I feel like I'll probably find out something else tomorrow. But I just wanted to highlight how important these great women are to me and how much they have helped me and strengthened me and lent me their shoulders in times where I really needed it. And I think, well, I guess the thing about it is that I really wanted to say is I don't ever want to take my friendships for granted. I don't ever want them to not know how much they mean to me. I don't ever want them to wonder. And they have a lot of really great people in their lives. So I'm sure, I'm sure they hear this from others, but I want to make sure that they know from me how I feel about them. And I've said this to them individually, but I thought this would be a way to highlight them publicly. So I am thankful for my friendships. Share, um, tag a friend in the comment section. Tag your friends that you're really thankful for and that you really value. Friendships that help to hold you up in times of difficulty, and those that will celebrate you. Oh, that's the other thing I want to mention for sure. These women always celebrate me. They are as present to celebrate me and encourage me as they are to hold me up in rough times. So I just couldn't ask for better friends. And the fact that they haven't changed in the best ways. So, like, they've changed as people. We all have, life starts to shape you, things that you go through, and all of that. But at their core, and when it comes to the things that are so valuable in terms of our friendship, they haven't changed. They really, I I will never wonder how these women feel about me, and they never have to wonder how I feel either. Now, if something happens and we fall out, just pull this episode back up and tell us to go listen to it. But um, that's all I have for this week. I really just wanted to highlight these important people. They each have their own stories that I hope enough people in enough people they're connected to get to hear them, because they will not come and tell their stories on my podcast. But um, maybe put it in the chat. Maybe tell them like, "Hey, Vel, Tay, Alicia, go on the pod. We want to hear your stories. Come on, guys." But I love them so very much. So I wanted to just share and highlight my friends, my closest friends. They're not all of my friends. I wanted to take this moment to highlight my closest friends, um, and just share who they are to me and why they're so special. Take this opportunity to do the same. Do it in the comment section. Do a video. Heck, do a whole social media post. Do a reel. But don't let your friends wonder. If you have great people in your life who support you and love you and tell you the truth in love, celebrate those people. All right. That is it. Thank you for listening or watching or watching. This has been the Unbreakable Her podcast. Until next time, stay unbreakable.